Hey, it's Sandra AT, and I want to talk about another isekai. It's called Trapped in a Dating Sim, The World of Otome Games is Tough on Mobs. The title kinda explains it all. It's an isekai that takes place in an Otome game world. If you don't know what that is, it is pretty much a dating sim aimed for women, where you pretty much play through a story while dating hot guys in the process. You might be more familiar with shoujo games, and maybe one of these days I'll talk about one based on one of those one of these days. Okay, I'm actually done stalling. Let's talk about the story now. It opens up with our main character slowly dying on the inside. And there's a simple reason for that too. He's stuck playing an Otome game. This shouldn't come off as a shocker, but Otome games aren't for everyone. So, why is he playing an Otome game? It turns out he has no other choice. One day his mom found BL in his closet, and his sister said it was his. So, the only way he can clear his name is to beat an Otome game for his sister. There's just one little problem with that, the game is actually really hard. The premise is pretty simple. It's your typical rags to riches story. A girl from the countryside goes to a school for nobles. There she falls in love, becomes a saint, then saves the world, which is pretty typical for an Otome story. Then it starts getting weird. You see, the studio who made the game usually made games for guys. So, on top of being an Otome game, they have RPG, strategy elements, mech suits, and aerial combat, which seems pretty weird for an Otome game, but then you start noticing things. You see, the romance was the only good part about this story, but you had to go through a lot of hard shit to get there. And to make matters worse, the male leads were kinda useless, which slowly wore down our MC. But you know what? The game so happened to have an in-game store. So the MC buys the two most expensive things to kinda make it easier. It took him 2 whole days to finally do it. He 100% the game. And suddenly he gets a message from his sister, which gets the MC thinking, just how did she afford that trip? And it turns out she couldn't. So out of spite, he sends a message to his mom, then heads outside. Yeah, biggest mistake of his life, he kinda just dies there. And that's the pre-isekai premise. Now, there's just one little thing I want to talk about before I move on. It may be hard by the way I'm showing things, but did you notice that none of the characters have names? This isn't a bit either, because most times in isekais, the pre-isekai world doesn't matter, but we've actually talked about characters in the Otome game. You kinda just know what characters do, or at the very least their title, but we never get a name. It's almost like the MC who is narrating this story doesn't really think of them as people, which makes sense. This is a game after all, at least until it isn't. Maybe I'm overcomplicating things and just thinking the name thing is way more important than it is, but it's kinda cool. Just pay attention to how the MC kind of portrays her and how the manga frames her. At least until we actually meet her in the story, because it's kind of messed up when you think about it. But that's enough of that, let's get to the isekai. We find him waking up in the middle of nowhere as a 5-year-old Leon Balford. And he's a little confused since he just got all our MC's memories. Or do they kind of just mix up? I don't really know how it works, to be honest. Well, it looks like it doesn't matter because he kind of just moves on. It's one of the perks of being 5, I guess. So he decides to head home, but he kind of just walks into a fist. Seems like Leon was trying to escape because he knew someone was coming. And that's where you start to notice that some things are a little weird about this world. The first thing you kind of pay attention to is the way they're dressed. Then you kind of notice that Leon's mom isn't considered the wife. And when the actual wife Zola appears, you kind of understand why Leon's dad had to hit him. It's not that he really wants to, it's just the fact that he doesn't hold all the power at the household. He just has to stand there and watch his son get insulted. So Leon gets sent to the shed as a kind of punishment, and this is where we learn really what is messed up with this world. It's kind of funny that the first question Leon asks his brother Nix is, why are there only guys in this shed? He doesn't know. You see, I didn't mention this earlier, but Leon is a noble, which is not good because the Balfords are barely nobles in the first place. Once upon a time, the Balfords were just a baroncy, which is just one step under noble status. Just think about it like upper middle class. So the Balfords were actually doing pretty well for themselves. Too well, even. You see, as time went on, their territory actually grew to the size of a baron-sized territory, which caused some people from the Halfar Kingdom to raise the status of the Balfords, but their grandfather didn't want that. Normally, a promotion would be good, right? So Leon asks about it, but his brother tells him that's the reason why his family's so poor. In the Halfar Kingdom, taxes are based on the rank of the family. So the Balford's grand plan in this was to be the size of a baron, but stay the rank of the baroncy. But that didn't work, so that's why his dad had to marry Zola, because he had to marry someone of similar status. So, on top of higher taxes and supporting his actual family, he needs to support Zola, who lives in the capital. It's kinda sad when you think about it. You are forced to marry a noble if you're a noble, but you don't want to marry a noble because they're all terrible. The higher the rank, the worse their personality gets. Now, it's kind of obvious, but nobody would want to marry a woman of higher rank, but it's actually quite normal. There is only one way to escape this fate, and is to actually study and graduate the academy. But if you don't get married by the time you're done, you're kinda just screwed. You kinda just end up as a second husband, and that is a fate worse than death. Again, I reiterate, this is common knowledge, so when Leon asks, what about what the man wants, Nyx answers, it doesn't matter. Women run the show around here. Just look at our father. He was a lot more heated when he said it, but you get the point. With everything said and done, Leon's head starts connecting the dots, and he makes a realization. This is the world of that Otome game. And then 10 years just flash right by. And to Leon, nothing really changed. The world still kinda sucks. In the game, at best, he's gonna be a background character, and he kinda just accepts it. Next year, he plans to go to the academy, find a wife, graduate, then pretty much live quietly. But then Leon gets set up, literally. There's this grand plan Zola has to get Leon married, but it kinda ends with Leon dying, so it's not really a great plan. His dad bails him out, but money is still an issue for their family. So Leon does the only thing he can and decides to become a venturer. And then he just almost kinda dies in the process. He assumes that his in-game knowledge would have made his life easier. He even had hopes and dreams, for the future. But that led him only to disappointment. Which leads us to a life or death gamble for Leon, because he needs this treasure or he will die. So he kinda just sails for a month, and then he gets lucky and finds the island. I mean, he did use his in-game knowledge to kinda find the area, but it still took him a month. So there might be a chance that his in-game knowledge isn't super accurate. Now, on that island, there was this research facility that was strangely more high-tech than the rest of the world. Just remember, this world is kind of in the Middle Ages, but has mechs and airships apparently. So after Leon fights a bunch of robots, he ends up finding the spaceship that he bought in the in-game store. So now there's only one thing that's kind of stopping him. There's a giant mech in the way. There's a lot of lore that the robot gives us, but it boils down to he hates all the people who live on the world currently. And the only reason Leon survives is he's a little bit Japanese. So the robot ends up taking Leon as his master, and the story then cuts back to the family. It turns out 3 months have passed, and now Zola is aiming at the little brother since they assume Leon is dead. But plot twist, he isn't. Now we're getting really close to the Otome game story. There's just one more scene to go through. We see a vast wilderness, and Leon is apparently watering flowers. Then a ball suddenly floats its way to Leon and says, "You seem cheerful, master." You could say that. I haven't felt this optimistic in a long time. This was the first time Leon was actually free in some kind of sense. He still needs to get married and graduate the academy, but now he's not restrained by Zola. After all, he's pretty much set for life at this point. He got to keep the island, and it was perfect in every way. So Leon's pretty much the happiest he's ever been. Which makes sense because he has Luxion, and that's the floating ball beside Leon. And that ball is just a disguise. Luxion is actually a spaceship that he found in the dungeon. Not only does it have to obey Leon's every command, it also can convert any material into another. As a result, Leon doesn't need to lift a single finger to fully develop the island, which means he doesn't need to work a single day in his life now. Everything should be kind of peachy for Leon right now, but there's one looming issue that's kind of haunting him at this point. And that's called society. He was born into an Otome game with bullshit rules. Just watch as reality slowly sets in for Leon because of his newfound wealth. Construction is proceeding, estimated completion in 1 year. Excellent. I'll leave it to you. You've already made me a huge fortune. From now on, I want to live the easy life. I must commend you, Master, for your vast ambition. You being sarcastic? Yes, I am. No effect. Have you finished enrolling at the academy? Yep, already. Even the merchants came to help out. They had Dad surprised. It must be thanks to your investment in the Balfour estate, Master. I've heard that the academy is a place to find a spouse. Be careful not to embarrass yourself, Master. What's that mean? Anyways, no one pays attention to faceless background characters, so I'll just blend in. Faceless. That is quite the rationale. And finding a partner will be easy. Just not an aristocrat, so I can stay independent. There's a reason why Leon thinks it's going to be really easy to find a partner. And that's because the academy is split into 2 classes. You got the advanced class, and then you got the regular class. The advanced classes have all the noble heirs and the daughters, remember, sexism. And then you got the regular classes, which are the people who pretty much serve the higher nobles, so the knights and the barons. This is where Leon kind of makes a mistake. He assumes that since he's not an heir, but technically a noble, he'll just be able to attend the regular classes. Leon thinks that his future looks bright and that his life pretty much peaked here, and it's true, his life did peak here, tragically. This is where you learn that one of Leon's greatest flaws, he is not self-aware in the slightest. He kind of forgot the fact that he discovered an island, found a lost item, and discovered a dungeon. So he pretty much earned himself a title, which promotes him to an heir, so he's forced to go to the advanced classes. And then it finally hits him. His dad tries to comfort him, but he knows that he has to deal with dangerous nobles. And as a taste, his sisters come, and remember, their family's lowly barons, and they're spoiled rotten. After his dad sees his daughters, he kind of just gives up and agrees with Leon. So the next step is going to the kingdom, and I'll leave that for next time. If I tried to condense everything from one book into a video, I would never release this video, you know? Yeah, a lot has happened, and I've been bricked on this video for quite a bit. I think it's been like 8-9 months at this point. So I do want to do a part 2, because I do really want to do 5 Eichmann voices and constantly confuse them throughout the entire thing. At least I want to talk about the stuff that I've covered, because I don't like talking about things without any context. So I guess I'll start with Leon, because he's interesting to say the least. You kind of get samples of his, revenge, and it's really nice, you know? Whenever he does anything in, the future, just pay attention to, was it his fault in the first place? Like the dude claims, I just want to live a peaceful life, but he always starts it, you know? And then he drives his opponents into the dirt. They be napping afterwards, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's not his fault, but it kinda is, you know? He made one mistake, and it just haunts him for the rest of his life. Remember, he just wants to live a peaceful life in the countryside, but just watch his fucking speed run through nobility. Every action he does to try to protect himself screws him over in the future. It's funny. Just pay attention to the Redgraves. I guess that's only person that I can really talk about. I guess I'll talk about the best way to experience the world of Otome games, and that's the manga. I mean, the book isn't bad, but the manga is so good because the art is so nice. Just look at the manga compared to the light novel illustrations and you'll know what's up. You get a more detailed explanation of things, but the manga is so full of life. The expressions are so nice. Just look at Leon slowly lose his innocence as a child. Or look at this slight difference between the 2 pictures of the family, and this dad is only smiling in one. Or in the future, when Leon describes his perfect girl, this manga panel is just fucking hilarious. You don't need to waste your time reading the book. The book is nice. I'm caught up to the latest translation. But this is where my hype kind of died and why I lost motivation, the 9 months are going on or something. You might have noticed that I haven't really talked about series that have animes yet, because these guys don't get repped well. I mean, 3 of them are really good, but that's like yearly. I just think about all the isekais that came out this year, and they were done like B minus, B, well, sometimes even C. But then I saw the World of Otome Games anime adaptation, like the poster picture, and it depressed me. Like, I mean, it didn't hurt me. It just like, man, did they do them dirty. Maybe I'll make a whole video explaining like my thoughts on this, but it's kind of boring. And I do like anime, like straight up. There's a lot of good shit out there, and I'll show some pictures of the things I'm watching this season. But I don't want to touch the anime, and unless people are like, it's fucking great, straight up to me, and they lie their teeth, I will never touch the anime. It's not that I think that it's a terrible job, it's just that I've gone through the story like 3 times at this point. I think I've read the fan translations, I've read the manga, and I've read the official translations, and I'm like, I don't need to go through this again, probably. Anyways, that was a tangent, wasn't it? I guess I can talk more about the story. There's so much more I want to talk about, but it's all spoilers. Like, there is a reason why this world favors women, or at least the kingdom, and it's not a very noble reason. It's fucking funny. But that comes at the end of book 3, and just a hint, just think about why the women are kind of acting in a really spoiled manner, and how that affects everyone around them. Or how I really want to talk about Marie and the princes and the noble gang, but that's for another episode, because you may hate them right now, but they become the entire circus. Like, they represent everything you hate, or every trope that you love in stories, and it doesn't work out, ever. That's what makes it so funny. Wait a minute, I forgot about Luxion. I love Luxion. Whenever Leon interacts with Luxion, it's kind of my favorite parts of the story, because their banter is so entertaining. Like, Luxion enables all of Leon's antics, and is kind of shackled by Leon's unwillingness to kill a person, but he still deals with it anyways. Like, Luxion can solve all this world's problems just by killing everyone, but Leon won't let that happen. It's kind of really fun to watch their relationship, because you think it's garbage on the outside, but on the inside, they're like the best trust in the entire story. There's a part in the story where like Luxion like has this perfect opportunity to fully betray Leon, and it looks like it the entire time, but then there's these subtle hints throughout the story, and then you see that Luxion was always on Leon's side, and then he screwed over the enemy. Fucking fantastic. And then Leon just constantly abuses Luxion. That's just how it is, you know. I do want to apologize for my bad British accent, but that's how I always thought Luxion would sound. But it didn't end that way, I guess. So if you enjoy these terrible accents that I do every so often, please do subscribe. I think I'm finished this video at this point. I do want to actually publish this one day. And do not stay tuned for part 2. I do want to make it, but it's not going to be for a bit. Anyways, thanks for listening. Please do like, comment, subscribe, and etc. Whatever. Thank you. Oh my goodness, was this so hard not to fucking spoil everything. I wanted to say names, I wanted to do all this kind of stuff, but I held back because, I don't know, to be honest. Even though I'm, like, super ahead, I mean, I'm light novel status, you know, light years beyond, but it is fucking nice to not be able to look back without spoiling anything. Yeah, and just remember that I don't care about spoilers in the slightest, but I know people do, so yeah, I hope you do enjoy the story. I leave out so much of these stories, so please do, like, enjoy the stories yourself. Since this story is really fun, but it kind of gets really cringy when I looked at the anime. I saw clips. And man, does it get so less cringy when you read it, you know, when there's actual emotion, sound, and visuals to it. It just, oh my god, it hurt. If you do, like, if you're still untainted by the anime, read the manga first. And if you love it so much that you want to feel it, you want to live it, watch the anime, then tell me about it. And if it's good enough, I'll maybe touch it.